This video comes from my Archaeology Corroborates the Bible series. Entries in this series are based on the book Unearthing the Bible, written by Titus Kennedy. Kennedy looks at 101 archaeological discoveries that bring the Bible to life. Dr. Titus Kennedy is a professional field archaeologist, an adjunct professor at Biola University, a research fellow at Discovery Institute, and has been a consultant, writer, and guide for history and archaeology documentaries and curricula. Kennedy currently directs archaeological projects in Bible lands, and he has researched and photographed artifacts from around the world. Artifacts left behind from the vanished ancient world of the Bible have been found and recovered through archaeology. What is an artifact? In simple terms, an artifact is an ancient object made or modified by humans, and many have been found, especially in recent years, at archaeological sites around the world. Artifacts include statues, altars, jewelry, weapons, tools, inscriptions, paintings, coins, scarabs, tablets, papyri, stelae, reliefs, and pottery, showcasing the artistic and technological prowess of the ancients. But more importantly, artifacts tell stories of the past. They serve as both visual and informational aids that provide insight into that ancient context and toward an accurate understanding and interpretation. The Bible is a collection of books written millennia ago in places and cultures far removed from modern readers, but artifacts can give us essential knowledge of the ancient world and help us avoid the problem of unconsciously or inadvertently viewing a passage or book in the context of a modern society and time. Because the Bible contains stories from the ancient world, written in a style different than the method of modern historians and paired with theology, many have assumed that the narratives in the Bible are myth, legend, and propaganda instead of accurate history. In fact, the majority of scholars, most media and educational sources, and many in the general public regard the Bible as a fairy tale and frequently portray it as unimportant or irrelevant beyond literary and religious studies. For years, the Bible has been routinely attacked and disregarded on the basis of history or archaeology. And yet, when people look into what archaeologists have unearthed, a different story comes to light, showing that instead of fiction and fairy tales, archaeology indicates that the Bible preserves an accurate recounting of the history addressed in its pages. Specifically, hundreds of artifacts from the distant past have demonstrated the events, people, and places in the Bible to be historical. The Sumerian King List preserves a record of the kings of Sumer from local and foreign dynasties, including reign lengths and brief supplemental historical information. The oldest known sources preserving this list are a tablet from Larsa dating to about 2200 BC and the Weld-Blundell Prism from slightly before 1800 BC, as it ends with a king named Sin-magir of Isin who reigned in the late 19th century BC. In archaeology, a prism typically refers to a four-sided clay artifact that usually contains writing on each of the sides. The four-sided prism measures about 7.9 inches tall and 3.5 inches wide, and the clay was impressed with cuneiform in the Sumerian language. These cuneiform texts of the Sumerian King List are unique in that they record the names and extremely long reigns of the kings before the Great Deluge, first city where the kings ruled, and a brief mention of the flood. The reigns of these antediluvian kings were measured in the Sumerian numerical units known as sars, ners, and sosses, since the Sumerians operated with a sexagesimal base 60 mathematical system instead of the base 10 system commonly used today. The text begins with, quote, "After the kingship descended from heaven, the kingship was in Eridu," end quote, and goes on to list eight pre-flood rulers with incredibly long lifespans ranging from 18,600 to 43,200 units. Archaeologically, Eridu at Tell Abu Shah-rain has been considered the oldest city in Mesopotamia and possibly the oldest city in the world. It's also been suggested as the location of the Tower of Babel due to its possible status as the first city and a massive ancient ziggurat constructed there. Following the list of these 8 kings, the text then mentions, quote, "After the flood swept over, the kingship was in Kish," end quote, before continuing the record of later dynasties and kings. The city of Kish was probably founded around 3100 BC. Perhaps it's no coincidence, but after Adam, there are also 8 men listed in Genesis before Noah and after the flood. Although the long reigns in the Sumerian King List probably do not correspond to our calculation of years, or the numbers are drastically inflated, comparison between the pre-flood and post-flood reigns demonstrates that the Sumerians believed that the pre-flood kings had lifespans several times longer than those who lived after the flood, similar to a comparison between pre-flood and post-flood lifespans in Genesis. As such, the Weld-Blundell Prism and the tablet from Larsa are ancient Mesopotamian sources up to 600 years before Moses that document a widespread belief that Eridu was the first city. People before the flood had extremely long lifespans, and a flood reset civilization prior to 3000 BC. Genesis chapter 7 verse 6 says, "Now Noah was 600 years old when the flood water came upon the earth." I see the evidence of